Hey, good morning, everyone. I will just share some slides that I've prepared for today. Okay. So my name is Allie. I am a registered dietitian here at Grand River Community Health Center. Ever since the pandemic, which is almost a year ago now, many of us have had to change the way we eat and the way we shop at the grocery store. So today we will be talking about healthy eating using common staples that you'll find in your pantry. So how has the pandemic affected the way we eat and shop? For one, we've been told to stay at home, so we're likely reducing the number of times we're going to the grocery store. With that, we're probably stocking up on more non-perishable items, things that last for longer, so things like canned and frozen food. With that comes with more meal planning for some of us. For some of us, maybe who haven't been doing as much meal planning, maybe we find ourselves eating out more. Or if we do plan more meals, maybe we find ourselves eating out less. We may have seen a change with our food budget, so we'd have to adjust that way. We've also find that a lot of grocery stores now use online shopping, curbside pickup, and delivery services, which can be very helpful for maybe something we've missed at the grocery store that week. We don't want to go back again. And so it's very helpful to be able to have some of your groceries delivered. Some people may have experimented with new recipes. Maybe because we're spending more time at home, we have a bit more time to look through different recipes, get inspired by different recipes. For a good period last year, a lot of people were very into baking and making bread. I know at some point, yeast and flour was hard to find at the grocery store. Maybe there's also been a change to our eating schedule because we're finding that we are spending more time at home. The fridge is easily accessible. So maybe we find ourselves snacking more, going to the fridge looking for something to eat, even though we're not entirely hungry. Or for some of us, maybe because we're staying at home, we don't have that routine. We may be skipping meals or forgetting to eat sometimes. So certainly there's been a change to our eating schedule. For some of us, maybe we find ourselves because of our emotions. I like to talk a little bit more about that because since the pandemic, many of us have had to adjust in many different ways. We are experiencing different emotions, things like stress, anxiety, sadness, loneliness, especially for seniors who've been told to stay home. Many are experiencing isolation. Has your appetite increased or decreased? Because different people experience stress differently and we react differently. Studies have shown that it does have an impact on our appetite, and for some people it increases, some people it decreases. Have you been coping your stress with comfort food? Do you have a lot of cravings over the past year? We know that stress does increase in hormone in our body called cortisol, and that does have an effect on our appetite. So knowing that there are some of these physiological changes to our body, I would encourage you to practice self-compassion. Try not to talk talk negatively about yourself. Try to avoid feelings of guilt. It's easier said than done, but try and find other ways to cope with your stress, such as staying active, stay connected with everyone through the internet. Maybe we want to try and sleep a little bit better, try spending more hours trying to sleep. Even things like try calming activities like meditation, or even speak to a professional if you need to. Again, easier said than done, but if you find that you're having a lot of cravings, here are some tips that might help you manage those. Making sure you eat nutritious food during the day. Quite often, we find that if we don't eat for a longer period of time, we're getting a little bit too hungry. That's usually when we get a lot of these cravings. So try and make sure you avoid skipping meals and eat regularly. Try keeping healthy snacks on hand. When you do get those cravings, try and eat something healthy before you reach for that comfort food. And sometimes we just need to satisfy those cravings. So eat a small amount of what you are craving and really enjoy it. Sweet treats and high fat snacks, those are not uncommon to reach for when we're stressed and looking for comfort food. So know that you're not alone, and it's important to find other ways to help you. So we're talking about healthy eating pattern today. What does that exactly mean? Typically, it usually means including a variety of different foods. So that includes whole grains. It's a great way to get a good source of fiber, certain nutrients like your B vitamins, and it's usually giving you a bit of protein as well. It also includes vegetables and fruit, whether you include fresh, frozen, or canned fruits and vegetables, and also includes protein foods, which are very important and are building blocks for our bodies. So that typically includes legumes, meats, fish, eggs, and yogurt. There are so many different diets that claim to be healthy out there. If you find that you're following a diet that is very restrictive, if they're trying to get you to avoid certain food groups, or there's a long list of things that you need to avoid, that typically isn't a very healthy diet to me. Uh, there are studies that have found that the best diet out there are ones that you can follow for a long time. So one that is sustainable. If you have to remove so many items on your list, that doesn't sound sustainable to me. So taking that into consideration, a healthy diet typically includes, taste. Different people have different taste buds. And also if you have a culture that you like to follow, your budget and your lifestyle, taking these into consideration can help you build a healthy eating pattern. Some healthy eating tips. Again, you want to make sure you're including a variety of different foods. The more colors, the more variety you see, the more different nutrients you're getting from them. So the more likely you're going to get all the nutrients that you need. Frozen and canned options are just as nutritious, if not sometimes they're easier to prepare and they stay good for a long time. Choose foods that have little to no added salt, sugars, and saturated fats. Try using different herbs and spices to boost your flavor instead of adding salt. Eat regularly throughout the day. This sometimes means you need to include healthy snacks. If you find that your appetite doesn't allow you to eat regular meals anymore, maybe you need to break those portions up and eat a little bit more frequently. Sometimes that means eating every 2 or 3 hours just to make sure you get everything you need in the day. Healthy eating snacks, so those can include things like cheese and crackers, peanut butter on toast, veggie dips. You can dip them in things like hummus or guacamole. Smoothies is a great way to include more fruits and vegetables if that's something that you want to make sure you get enough of. You can also include fruit in your yogurt, maybe add some nuts to it as well. And even a simple tuna or egg salad sandwich can be a quite nutritious snack. For some of us, you want to make sure that you're doing your cooking and your meal prepping at a time that works for you. Some people find that you're more productive in the morning. Some people find that, as the day goes on, you get more tired and there's less chance of you cooking a big meal when you're more tired. So if you are someone like that, maybe you want to do some of your preparation in the morning when you have the most energy. Maybe you want to chop up more vegetables or cook some rice ahead of time just to help you with your meals throughout your day. My motto is cook once, eat twice or more, because who really has time to do dishes 3 times a day? When you're cooking, you might as well cook more so that you have leftovers. When you have leftovers, you can freeze those additional portions. And when you don't feel like cooking, you can pull them out from your freezer and you'll still have something nutritious you can have that you've made. So always cook in large batches so that you have extra. Some grocery shopping tips. These are something we find maybe we are using more often over the last year. Because we're trying to limit how often we're going to the grocery store, it's really important that you don't miss anything when you're there. Some of us are also trying to reduce how much time we're actually at the grocery store. So it's a good idea to make sure you bring a list with you so that you don't forget anything. I always like to make a running list on my fridge so that throughout the week, if I'm missing anything or if something comes up, I'm writing it on the fridge throughout the week. I also like to shop for sales and deals. You always get a better deal when they're on sale. Typically, larger packages or bulk packages are cheaper. So you might want to split with your friends or family, or you can freeze extra portions and use them later. There's an excellent app if you use a smartphone called Flip, Flipp, and that app has all the deals and all the flyers for each week for pretty much all the grocery stores you can find out there. The grocery stores usually have new flyers every Thursday. And so Tuesdays and Wednesdays, you can even look ahead for what's coming up next week. So you can really plan what you want to buy for that week. So it's an excellent app to use. Some grocery stores price match. And so you can actually pull up that app on your phone and get them to price match for you. So it's an excellent one to check out before you go to the store. When you're at the grocery store, always compare unit prices. They're usually on the price label and they're in very, very tiny numbers and letters. So look for that $ per 100-gram unit. Let's say you're looking for two different brands of canned tomatoes. One is 250 milliliters, the other one is 400 milliliters. One is $1, the other one is $2. How do you know which one is the best deal? So usually it will calculate that out for you under the number price per 100 gram. You can look for the smaller price per 100 gram, then you'll know you're getting the best deal. Again, utilize delivery service, curbside pickup. I know the grocery stores are still utilizing senior hours first thing in the morning. So using and utilizing these hours and curbside pickup options. So for fruits and vegetables, what is the best for you? What is the most nutritious? Fresh, frozen, or canned? They're actually pretty much all about the same nutritionally. So it really depends on what you like and the type of fruits and vegetables you are getting. I would choose the fresh ones if you're going to be using them in the next few days. Quite often, if we leave fresh fruits and vegetables in the fridge or out on your room temperature table, it goes bad very quickly. So the longer it sits in your fridge, they tend to be less appealing. Maybe they've started to wilt if they're things like leafy green vegetables. And sometimes you lose some nutrients when they're going bad in your fridge. So unless you're going to be using them quickly in the next few days, you might want to look for other options like canned or frozen. Especially if they're in season, that's also when I would choose fresh fruits or vegetables. Clementines right now are in season. You find big boxes of them on sale for a really good price, and they're so sweet. You might start to find asparagus starting to go on sale in the grocery stores now too. So always look for ones that are in season. They're usually the best taste and the best quality when they're in season. Canned vegetables are also excellent idea to keep on hand. All you have to do is drain them and rinse them, and you can add them to your stir fries, add them to your chilies, or just eat them just like that. They're good to go. You can rinse them to remove any excess sodium that you might find in the can, or you can look for no added salt versions. They sometimes have the healthy check mark with the green or the blue label. Those typically have the no added salt versions. If you're choosing between frozen or canned vegetables, I would choose depending on how you like the texture. For example, canned corn is usually quite nice and crispy in the can, but frozen ones, they do have a bit of a different texture. So depending on how you like them, it's nutritionally, you're getting more or less the same thing, and it's really about the texture and what you're adding it to can help you choose whether you want to choose a frozen or a canned vegetable. So what do you want to keep in your pantry? It's a good idea to keep a variety of different foods in your pantry so that you can whip up healthy meals with what you have. You don't have to always include everything on these lists, but it's a good idea to pick a few so that when you don't have anything fresh on hand, there are some of these things you can whip up very quickly. So for grain products, you can always keep rice, barley, quinoa, pastas. Those are excellent to keep on hand. They stay good for a really long time. Vegetables and fruit, we talked a little bit about canned vegetables, especially canned tomatoes. I like to keep lots of those on hand to make any sauces or chilies. It's a good base for a lot of recipes. So with the canned tomatoes, quite often you'll find a lot of recipes call for tomato paste as well. So I would keep some of that on hand. Canned vegetable soups, that's also an excellent choice, especially when you can find the low sodium versions. It's a great way to include more vegetables in your meals. You can also add frozen vegetables to your canned vegetable soups just to give you a bit more of a boost on the vegetable side. For fruits, canned fruits are also good to choose, especially if you buy the ones that are packed in its own juice and not syrup, so that there's a bit less sugar in them. Onions, potatoes, carrots, we're talking about fresh ones here because these actually last for a really long time, more than a month sometimes. Carrots, I would keep in the fridge, but onions, potatoes, as long as you keep them in a dark cupboard, so in your pantry, you want to make sure that there's enough air circulation with the onions or potatoes. Otherwise, if you keep them in a sealed bag, it might start to grow and it won't last as long. Frozen vegetables, things like broccoli, cauliflower, green beans, these are excellent ones to keep on hand. Lots of variety you can find at the grocery stores now. For meat and alternatives, there you can actually get your proteins from your canned beans, peas, and lentils. So these are your legumes. So for example, kidney beans, chickpeas, green lentils, you can find in a can. You can also buy dried beans, peas, and lentils. They're usually a bit cheaper as well. You get more bang for your buck, but it does take more preparation because you do need to soak some of them. Other items you can find to help you add some protein, maybe some peanut butter, even some canned tuna, canned salmon. These are excellent choices to keep in your pantry. For milk alternatives, milk does go bad quite quickly in your fridge. So sometimes if you're not going to the store for more than a week or 2 weeks, you might want to keep some skim milk powder on hand to help you add some of that calcium and vitamin D. For cheese, I would suggest buying blocks of cheese instead of buying the shredded ones. It does take a little bit more preparation when you're using them, but the block ones usually will last longer in your fridge. An unopened block of cheese can last up to 4 months in your fridge. The harder cheeses usually will last longer, but usually the shredded ones don't last just as long. For fats and oils, it's a good idea to keep some soft, non-hydrogenated margarine. There are ones that are made with olive oil and ones that are made with vegetable oils that are a little bit better for us. Vegetable oils like olive oil and canola oil, these are all excellent choices to use, whether we're using it in our cooking or if you're making your own salad dressing, these are great choices to include. For those of us who might be doing a bit more baking these days, these key ingredients are important to keep on hand. Things like flour, or sugar, or baking powder, oats, and vanilla extract. These are very common baking ingredients to include. I actually did a virtual cooking class a couple months ago, and I made this healthy cheese and herb bread using these very common staples. So the recipe is included here. You can also see it under Cookspiration. I also like to use dried beans because, again, they're a very cheap option to include a good source of protein, high in iron, and high in fiber. They usually keep us quite full for a long time. So we want to pay a little bit more attention to the dried beans because we do need to make sure we soak them before we cook them. So it does take a bit more time. When you're using dried beans, split peas and lentils, those are the exception. We don't need to soak them before cooking, but beans like chickpeas and kidney beans, we do need to make sure we soak them. So wash the beans, rinse them really well. You can get rid of any dirt or debris that's in there before you soak. You have two options when you're soaking. One of them might be the easiest because you just have to leave it in some water. You leave it overnight for 8 or 12 hours and then you drain the water. Or if you need to use it sooner, you could try the quick soaking method. So you would boil the beans, you turn the heat down and you simmer it for about 2 or 3 minutes. Turn the heat off, you cover it and let it sit for about an hour. And then it would be the same equivalent to if you've soaked them overnight. After that, you would want to add some water and bring it to a boil again. And it usually takes about 1.5 hours to 2 hours to make sure that the beans are readily soft enough to eat. So it does take quite a bit of time to prepare dried beans. This is a cooking chart that you'll find on Pulse Canada. It gives you a good guideline on how much water you want to use, how long do you have to cook it for, and how much does it yield. So you know that if you use 1 cup of beans, you can actually end up with 2.5 cups after it's cooked. So it's a good guideline on how long you want to cook things for. I would pay a little bit of attention to these. Okay, so your split peas, your lentils, and your split chickpeas, they don't need to be soaked. So you would follow the previous instructions. You just rinse them, get rid of all the dirt, and then you can throw them right into your cooking. Especially the split lentils, those are my favorite ones to use because it takes only 5 to 15 minutes to cook. So it's much quicker to use when you're cooking on a daily basis. So I have included a list of recipes as a handout. You will receive it to your email after we finish today. Make sure you contact Linda at the Grand River Council of Aging to make sure you get a copy of the handout of recipes. The recipe list will include recipes that can help you use up a lot of your canned food. So if you've built up a lot of your canned storage, you're not sure what to do with them, this will help you use up a lot of the canned beans or corn or tomatoes, all the ones that we suggested to keep in your pantry. You can use up a lot of those in some of these recipes. So keep an eye out for it. Again, you can be flexible with how you use these recipes. You can change it up to whatever you have available at home. You can even substitute with any frozen vegetables. For example, number 6 in the minestrone soup, you can really use anything that you have available to use up anything that you have that needs to be used up. I know the beginning of the pandemic last year, a lot of people panicked and bought a lot of canned food, a lot of non-perishable food. If you still have some of that available, don't be ashamed, because it happened to a lot of us. And so check the expiry dates of the canned food. Sometimes I would expect it to be okay to use after a year because it's canned. But check the expiry date, and it's not too late to use them up now. So thank you everyone for listening in today, and I hope you take away some helpful tips and tricks to help you eat some healthy meals at home.